A doctor wraps a cuff around your arm, pumps it up, reads two numbers, and tells you whether you're fine or in trouble. You nod like you understand. You don't. Almost nobody does. Blood pressure is one of those health metrics that every adult has heard of, every doctor checks, and almost no one can actually explain. You know high is bad, you know low is probably also bad. You might know the numbers should be somewhere around 120/80, but what those numbers actually measure, why there are two of them, what's physically happening inside your body when they change, and why it matters so much? Most people have no clue. And the reason they have no clue is that nobody has ever explained it without drowning them in medical terminology. If you're the person who never gets it until someone gives you the right analogy, this channel is for you. Subscribe. Let me start with the absolute basics, because even the word blood pressure is misleading in a way that confuses people. Blood pressure is literally the force your blood pushes against the walls of your blood vessels as it flows through them. That's it. The blood is moving, the vessels are tubes, and the blood pushes against the tube walls. The harder it pushes, the higher your blood pressure. Think of your circulatory system like the plumbing in a house. Your heart is the pump. Your blood vessels are the pipes. Your blood is the water. Blood pressure is the water pressure inside those pipes. When a plumber measures your home's water pressure, they're asking how hard the water is pushing against the inside of the pipes. When a doctor measures your blood pressure, they're asking the exact same question about your arteries. And just like in a house, the right amount of pressure is essential. Too little pressure, and the water barely trickles out of the faucet. Your organs don't get enough blood. Too much pressure, and the pipes are under constant strain. Over time, they crack, leak, or burst. In your house, that means a flooded basement. In your body, that means a stroke, a heart attack, or kidney failure. Now let's talk about why there are two numbers, because this is the part that confuses everyone. When the doctor says 120/80, those aren't two different measurements of the same thing. They're measuring two different moments in your heart's cycle. Your heart is a pump, but it's not a pump that runs continuously like a motor. It squeezes and relaxes, about 70 times per minute. Each squeeze blasts blood out into the arteries. Each relaxation is a brief pause while the heart fills back up for the next squeeze. Think of your heart like someone squeezing a water balloon attached to a garden hose. Every squeeze sends a surge of water through the hose and the pressure spikes. Between squeezes, the pressure drops while the balloon refills. If you measured the pressure inside the hose, you'd get two readings: the peak pressure during the squeeze and the lowest pressure between squeezes. That's exactly what blood pressure is. The top number, 120, is the systolic pressure, the pressure during the squeeze, the maximum force your blood is exerting against artery walls at the moment the heart contracts. The bottom number, 80, is the diastolic pressure, the pressure between squeezes, the baseline force that's always there even when the heart is resting between beats. Both numbers matter, but for slightly different reasons. The top number tells you how hard the heart is working when it contracts. The bottom number tells you how much resistance the blood vessels are putting up even when the heart is resting. A high top number means the pump is straining. A high bottom number means the pipes are too tight. Now here's where it gets important. What actually causes blood pressure to go up or down? Several things, but they all come back to the plumbing analogy. The first is how hard the pump is working. If your heart beats harder and faster, the pressure goes up. This is why your blood pressure spikes during exercise, during stress, during fear. Your heart ramps up the pump because your body needs more blood delivered faster. That's normal and temporary. The problem is when the pump is running hard all the time, even when you're sitting on the couch watching TV. Think of it like a house where someone turned the water pump to maximum and broke the dial. Short bursts of high pressure are fine. That's what the system is designed for. But if the pump runs at max 24 hours a day, every pipe in the house is under constant stress. The second factor is the width of the pipes. This is the big one. Your blood vessels are not rigid metal tubes. They're flexible, muscular tubes that can widen and narrow. When they narrow, the same amount of blood has to squeeze through a tighter space, and the pressure goes up. When they widen, the blood flows more easily and the pressure drops. Think of it like putting your thumb over the end of a garden hose. Same water flow, same pump, but the opening is smaller. The water blasts out harder. That's what happens when your arteries narrow. The blood has nowhere to go except through a tighter tube, so the pressure spikes. Arteries narrow for a lot of reasons. Stress hormones tighten them temporarily. Smoking damages the lining and makes them stiffer. High sodium pulls extra water into the bloodstream, increasing the total volume of fluid pushing through the same pipes. And plaque buildup from cholesterol gradually narrows the interior diameter over years, like mineral deposits slowly clogging the inside of old pipes. That last one is the slow killer. You don't feel plaque building up. You can't sense your arteries getting narrower. And because there are no symptoms, people walk around with dangerously high blood pressure for decades without knowing it. There's a reason doctors call it the silent killer. By the time you feel something wrong, the damage has usually been happening for years. Quick favor before the next part, because this next section explains what high blood pressure actually does to your body, which I think is the part that finally makes people take it seriously. If this has been useful, hit the like button. It genuinely helps this video reach other people who need to hear it. Back to it. Let me explain what happens when pressure stays high for too long, because understanding the consequences is what separates people who manage their blood pressure from people who ignore it. Remember the plumbing analogy. High water pressure damages pipes over time. Small cracks form, joints weaken. Eventually something gives. Your body works the same way, but the consequences are worse than a flooded basement. Your arteries are lined with a smooth inner layer that blood flows over easily. Constant high pressure is like running sandpaper over that lining from the inside. Over time, the lining gets roughened, scarred, and damaged. Cholesterol and other junk in the blood start sticking to the damaged spots, building up like rust on the inside of an old pipe. That buildup narrows the artery further, which raises pressure further, which damages the lining more. A vicious cycle that feeds itself. In the heart, this means the pump has to work harder and harder to force blood through increasingly clogged and narrow pipes. The heart muscle thickens and stiffens from the effort, like any muscle that's overworked. But unlike your bicep, a thickened heart is not a strong heart. It's a stiff heart that can't fill or pump efficiently. That's heart failure. Not a dramatic Hollywood heart attack where you clutch your chest and collapse. A slow decline where the pump gradually can't keep up with the demand. In the brain, the consequences are even more dramatic. Your brain's blood vessels are tiny and delicate compared to the rest of your body. Think of them like thin garden hoses connected to a system designed for industrial pipes. Sustained high pressure can bulge a weak spot in one of those tiny vessels, like a balloon. That bulge is an aneurysm. If it pops, blood floods into the surrounding brain tissue and destroys it. That's a hemorrhagic stroke. The other type of stroke happens when a piece of plaque breaks off from a damaged artery wall and travels to the brain, where it blocks a tiny vessel and cuts off blood supply to part of the brain. The tissue downstream starves and dies. That's an ischemic stroke. Both are directly connected to sustained high blood pressure. Let me talk briefly about what you can actually do about blood pressure, because the doom and gloom means nothing if you don't know the levers you can pull. Going back to the plumbing analogy, you have two basic strategies: reduce the force of the pump or widen the pipes. Ideally, both. Reducing the pump force means reducing the things that tell your heart to work harder than it needs to. Chronic stress, poor sleep, caffeine overload, lack of physical fitness. Exercise is counterintuitive here because it temporarily raises blood pressure during the workout, but over time it makes the heart more efficient, so it pumps the same amount of blood with less effort. A trained heart beats slower and pushes harder per beat, which means lower resting pressure overall. It's like upgrading from a cheap pump that runs fast and loud to a high-quality pump that runs slow and quiet and moves the same volume. Widening the pipes means reducing the things that narrow them. Cutting sodium reduces the extra fluid volume in the bloodstream. Quitting smoking lets the artery lining heal. Managing cholesterol slows plaque buildup. Medication, when needed, works directly on the pipe walls to relax and widen them. The frustrating part is that none of this feels urgent. Your blood pressure is high, you feel fine, so why change anything? Because the plumber telling you your water pressure is dangerously high isn't warning you about today. The pipes aren't going to burst tonight. They're going to quietly weaken over the next 5, 10, 15 years. And one day something gives and the damage is permanent. Let me stack all of this together so it locks in. Your circulatory system is plumbing. Heart is the pump, blood vessels are the pipes, blood is the water, and blood pressure is the water pressure inside those pipes. The two numbers measure peak pressure during the heart's squeeze and baseline pressure between squeezes, like the surge and rest cycle of a water balloon attached to a hose. Arteries narrow from stress, sodium, smoking, and plaque buildup, which is like putting your thumb over a garden hose. High pressure over time roughens the inside of the pipes like sandpaper. Plaque builds up on the damage like rust, and the cycle feeds itself. The heart thickens from overwork, brain vessels can bulge and burst, and kidney filters quietly burn out. Exercise upgrades the pump so it works less hard. Cutting sodium, managing cholesterol, and quitting smoking widen the pipes. That's blood pressure. Not a mysterious number on a screen, a mechanical system you can understand, measure, and influence. If this helped blood pressure finally make sense, do me 2 quick favors. Hit the like button and subscribe so you catch the next one. I'm deciding between 2 topics for the next video and I want you to pick. Should I explain how cholesterol works using a delivery truck analogy, or how the immune system works using a castle defense analogy? Drop A or B in the comments, and whichever gets more votes I'll make first. Thanks for watching.